Hello learners, today we are going to study about shares and the different kinds of shares. Different kinds of shares we will discuss are equity shares and preference shares. Under preference shares we will also discuss redeemable and irredeemable shares, participating and non-participating preference shares. And finally we will discuss hybrid shares. Let us understand what is a share. Share capital of a firm represents the funds available to a firm for investment purposes. Investment in assets which will help to generate revenue or income for the company. A fractional part of this shared capital is called a share. So the capital in the form of shares which are issued and the funds which are procured as a result help in the creation of assets for the company, and the smallest part of the share capital is known as a share. Share therefore represents ownership interest of the members or the owners of these shares who are called by the name shareholders. So therefore each unit possessed by the shareholders is therefore called a share. Different kinds of shares. The most popular is the ordinary shares or the equity shares. They are paid dividends only when profits are left after the preference shareholders have been given their share of dividends, which is at a fixed rate of dividend. Holders of ordinary shares have voting rights at all meetings of the company in proportion to the shares held by them. However, if we look at the features of equity shares, we find that the dividend rate can change from time to time depending upon the profits earned or the revenue earned by the company from year to year. Dividend on equity shareholders is given only after payment of dividend to preference shareholders, and in case the company is wound up, the repayment of capital to equity shareholders is done at the last. First, the debenture holders are repaid the amount of capital invested by them, then the preference shareholders, and finally the equity shareholders. We come to the next major categories of share. The second category is preference shares. They have the right to receive dividend, preferential right to receive dividend at a fixed rate before any dividend is paid to the ordinary shareholders. In case the company is wound up, they also have the right to get the capital back invested by them before the equity shareholders are paid back. Therefore, if we look at the features of preference shareholders, we find that preference shares are a long-term source of finance, and usually the dividend paid on them is higher than the interest paid to the debenture holders. Preference shareholders will always get a fixed rate of dividend paid regardless of the volume of profit earned by the company. They can be further subdivided into redeemable or irredeemable. Some of the preference shares can be redeemable. They may be redeemed after a certain fixed period of time, and it is a very long period of time. It could extend up to 20 years, or they may not be paid back any time in future. They may be irredeemable. They can also be participating preference shares or non-participating preference shares. In the case of participating preference shares, they enjoy extra earnings beyond the dividends paid to them at a fixed rate of dividend in the form of dividends from the profits earned by the company. They may also be cumulative or non-cumulative. In the case of cumulative preference shares, if in certain years they are not paid dividend, they will get the areas in the future years to come. The third major category of shares are the hybrid shares. These are issued by the company, and they are issued with the option of converting them into ordinary equity shares with certain conditions after certain period of time. They may or may not include involve voting rights. So certain hybrid shares grant voting rights to its holders. Some do not grant any type of voting right to the holders of these kinds of shares. Thank you, learners.